Good morning, sir, and my dear friends. Today I am going to present presentation on regarding my BTech project. So, table of content for this will be project description, climatic condition of Howrah, and following all these points, which I will be discussing in later part. So, starting with the project description, there is a question: Can you think of the top 10 global issues? So, I would like to give you a hint from this image. I think you can get the answer. And yes, you are true. I'm talking about the climate change. So my project is a little bit related to that only, that the main problem for this climate change is the greenhouse gases. So if we can reduce these greenhouse gases, that can also that can also help to minimize the effect of adverse effect of climate change. So in this project, I am calculating the carbon footprint which is generated from a hostel. So a typical methodology which I will be adopting, and that will be applied to calculate the carbon footprint. For example, I have also taken the case study for a Sen Hall, which is a hostel of IST Shivpur. So this hostel is located in IST Shivpur, and location, if I talk about the climatic condition, then two things I would like to show: mean yearly temperature, and one more is mean yearly precipitation. So as you can see that the mean yearly temperature is increasing, and which is not a good sign that should happen, because temperature if the temperature increases, there are much more things which are interrelated with each other, and as a result you can see that as the temperature increases, the precipitation rate is also increasing. So all these things are very much connected. So we all know about the climatic condition, means adverse effect of climate change. So we need to worry about all these things. So now coming to the point, that what is carbon footprint? So carbon footprint is basically a unit to calculate the CO2 which is released from our day-to-day activities, or the things which we are doing in our life. For example, the things which we are using, like a smartphone, or the food we eat, the clothes we wear, the vehicles we use, all of these are sources of GHG emission. So we have to just calculate this carbon footprint regarding all those things which we are using in our life. So this is a little bit definition about the carbon footprint. So in order to calculate the carbon footprint, I have used the greenhouse gas protocol, GHG protocol, which was having a good past history regarding calculation, and how to present it. So firstly, we have to, in order to calculate the carbon footprint of any organization or institution, we have to divide it into the organizational boundary and operational boundary. So organizational, what is this boundary? Boundaries are imaginary line, okay, which decide that what are the emissions to take and what are to not, or so that double counting, that kind of things can be sorted out. So organizational boundary determines the company's operation to include, and the operational boundary determines the which emissions to include. For example, in case of Senhor, I would like to say that in taking the whole picture of IST Sirpur, so in IST Sirpur you can see that all these main buildings, S&T, Hostel 7, Hostel 8, Sen Hall, Richardson Hall, all those things are means different buildings, but they all have something common. So here the organizational boundary will be the IST Sipur and the buildings present inside it, and operational boundary will be the Sen Hall and the works which are happening in the Sen Hall. So here the case study of Sen Hall I have taken. So the mess canteen rooms, and water supply system, electricity supply system, and all those things can be included in this operational boundary. Now methodology to calculate for carbon footprint. These are the five steps which are introduced by the GHG protocol. So these are firstly and these all are sequential. Means we can't escape to other before before doing the previous one. So first one is that identifying the greenhouse gases emission sources, followed by selecting a suitable calculation approach and choosing the collecting activity data and choose emission factors. Means there are two basically methods. Either I go by the direct calculation, or we can go by the fuel analysis. So that can happen in this third part. And fourth is applying calculation tools. And fifth is the roll up GHG emission data, means summing up and presenting it uh, in an official format, we can say so. So uh, if we want to calculate the how much CO2 is getting produced, so it is distributed in several parts, or we can say that we can't start from one end and we can end at the other end. Means it is not like so. So as per the GHG protocol, means they have divided the emissions into major three scopes: scope 1, scope 2, scope 3. So scope 1 is the scope 1 collects the data which are directly emitted from the institute or organization, and scope 2 is related mainly with the indirect, and scope 3 is also with the indirect. But in scope 2, uh, usually the electricity part is taken care of, and that what is the how much power we are using. So in the scope 2, electricity sources we consider, and in the scope 3, all indirect sources which are not included in scope 1 or scope 2. Because scope 3, some companies or some institution may have scope 3 much higher, and some may have scope 3 much lower. So this is a general way or procedure which was proposed by GHG protocol. So I have adopted here for calculating the carbon footprint of hostel itself also. So if I talk about the how to collect the data for the hostel. So in case of scope 1, 2, and 3, scope 1, in case of scope 1 means we can get that canteen mess or cooking, the fuel which is used, like LPG gas or natural gas, fossil fuels. These can be used. Moreover, if any public transport is there. And in case of scope 2, direct electricity consumption, and scope 3, which are not included in scope 1 and scope 2, but are the sources of emissions, and that can be added in this scope 3, like sold products and services, and packaged item, and waste disposal, all these things. So if I talk about the Sen Hall, then Sen Hall has an average consumption of 20 commercial cylinders. So this can be included in scope 1 because it is the direct emission from the Senhal. And in case of scope 2, direct electricity consumption, uh, that is around 7,000 kilowatt hour. And in case of scope 3, we can add all these points like mess food, which is uncooked, electricity consumption, furnitures. But due to lack of the appropriate emission factors, I could not uh, I could not add the those points for furnitures or other points also, like sold services and other items. But in case of scope 3, I have added the mess food items, and these are the average monthly consumption based on the past 3 months. So that I have included, and uh, much more things I have excluded also because I could not get the emission factors, correct emission factors. So I had not added those. And talking about the data analysis, that whatever the data I have collected, and how much emissions are getting generated from those. So in case of a scope 1, I have applied two tools basically. One which was proposed by ISC Bangalore, and one that is was proposed by greenhouse gas protocol itself. So from both these, I got that from one ISC Bangalore, I got that 1134 kg of CO2, and from that uh, greenhouse gas protocol, I got around 1209 kg of CO2. So taking means both of them are nearby equal, because this greenhouse gas protocol having some changes, so the value might change, but it is nearly same, means in case of this scope 1. So I have taken this 1209 kg. In case of scope 2, I have again taken the two sources. For that, one is the US EPA and the second one is GHG protocol calculation 2. So from again there I am getting two different values. One is 6650 kg of CO2, another is that 5642. So here the difference is a little bit large, but actually the emission factor which would be much suitable, which I could get from the nearby electricity power plants, but I was not able to get that data, so I had used that US EPA method and greenhouse gas calculation tools. But it may vary depending on what sources in India is being used for electricity generation. So here also the taking the maximum, it is 6650 kg of CO2, and scope 3 is scope 3, as I have calculated the data for the uncooked food item in the mess. So from there, means these are not the things which I got emission factors at one place, means from different sources I have to take some websites, some research papers, so that I have to take. So applying that, I got that around 5051 kg of CO2 is from scope 3. So summing up all those, I got around 12,910 kg of CO2 equivalent from scope 1, 2, and 3. So an analysis can be done that in case of scope 2, the maximum CO2 is getting produced. And I would like to add that in case of scope 3, the emission would be much, much higher, because in same hall or hostel, most of the things which we use are service based, which we buy. So, but I'm lacking those sources, that I'm lacking those emission factors, that for one unit how much CO2 is produced. So I could not add all those points. So scope 1 is very less, because there is not any such manufacturing kind of works is getting done. So scope 3 is less, and scope 2 is a bit higher, and scope 3 is in between them. So an average value which we can assume that around 12,000 and 13,000 kg of CO2, 13 ton CO2 is produced in 1 month. So plan for future work, if I talk that now we have calculated, so we have to report it in an documented form. So how to represent that, and how to overcome this data collection limitation, because collecting data is a little bit challenging task, that what are the things to include and what are to not. Then also setting emission GHG emission targets for the subsequent years, so that we can get the result in positive aspects, and possible strategies to minimize the carbon footprint, because all these analysis will be only helpful if we could reduce the greenhouse gas emission. If as a result the CO2 greenhouse gas emission is not reduced, then it's no use, it is of no use. So we need to think upon that also. So I hope that I was able to explain, although from my part. And instead, if you are having any questions or doubts, you are welcome. Thank you.